All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Sober Yoga Girl podcast. I'm really looking forward to this episode. And today I have a guest here with me, Emma Ebdon. And Emma and I know each other from way back when I was living in Abu Dhabi. Emma was a participant and later led some group fitness sessions at one of the fitness studios where I worked at, and I taught yoga before I quit my teaching job. And Emma and I have been connected on social media for a long time, spent some time together when I was in Abu Dhabi, I think about a year ago. And the work that she does now is she is a simplicity coach. And so she helps women start to let go and simplify their lives. And we had her as a guest in the Sober Girls Club, which is our Sunday night session for members, a couple of weeks ago. And it was just such an amazing and inspiring talk. And my whole group got so much momentum. Like, we now have a decluttering challenge happening on our app that Emma's helping facilitate. And it's just been so amazing. And so I thought having her on the podcast would be incredible, just so more people can hear her inspiring story and be motivated by her journey and what she shares. So welcome, Emma. How are you?
I'm very well. Thank you so much, Alex, for inviting me on to the podcast. I'm very excited.
Super excited to have you here.
Thank you.
So in the Sober Girls Club we did a couple weeks ago, you shared a bit about your journey and your story before becoming a simplicity coach and doing what you do now. So I was wondering if you could share some bits from that again, so that our listeners can kind of get a context into who you are.
Yeah, sure. So my life before becoming a simplicity coach. Well, I came from a divorced parents. My parents divorced really young. When I was really young, I was about 5 years old. And I suppose that had quite an impact on my life. I lived most of my life kind of in fear. And I was quite a scared child. I lived with anxiety quite a lot. I would, worry about everything and worry about, I suppose, maybe loss. Coming from divorced parents, you have that separation and that unsettledness in your life. And then that need to maybe please everybody, to make sure everybody's feeling okay. I think I definitely became a people pleaser very young in my life, as I look back now and reflect, because I just wanted to make sure my parents were happy, so that kind of where my journey started. I then went off to university and I studied sports science because I was big in sports. Sport was my life. My mum always just used to say, you could run before you walked. I was a kid that danced really young and got into everything, climbed the walls, climbed the trees, the proper little tomboy. I got into university to do sport, which I absolutely loved, but I was still really struggling with anxiety. I ended up on anxiety medication. I was having panic attacks. I was feeling overwhelmed just because of the excess that was going on. Not just the things that were around me, but everything that was going on in my mind or in my life, Jump forward, I got married quite young and had my children, 25 and 27, suffered from postnatal depression, again linked to anxiety and depression, and struggled again a little bit of where I was and who I was going to be in this world. But there was constant chaos. With children come more stuff, and there was more stuff coming in, and there was very, very little stuff going out. And there was a lot of that expectation, I suppose, of, how you're brought up or how society perceives you to be a mom or, to live in the world and to conform. And sometimes it's pressure through generations, just of learnt beliefs of how we lived our life. Jump forward again, my husband worked, he was also in the military. So that put a lot of strain and fear and stress on me still. There's many times you go back into the, 20 years ago, he, was out of the country for a lot. So I lived that life of constant worry. Is he going to be okay? Is he going to come back? I was raising 2 children on my own, then he would be back. So there was this constant shift of stuff going on in our lives. And then he left the military and we moved to a beautiful, serene area of Scotland, which was gorgeous because the outlook was amazing. We lived quite rural, but it was also quite a sad time. I lost my mum to cancer just a few months after moving up there. And, it took a year of my life of pause, really, because I wasn't sure what to do next, because she'd been my protector, I suppose, from a young age. Being from divorced parents, I lived with my mum constantly. And I lost myself massively because I didn't actually know my own identity. I didn't know who I was. So that was a really difficult time of my life. And I held on to everything because I felt if I let go of her things, then, I would let go of her love. That was really difficult to comprehend in my head, that her things were part of her, and that I had to have them. Otherwise, she would look at me from above going, oh, you've just forgotten about me because you've let go of my clothes, you know? So that's a slow process. That was a slow process to change on that one. And we were living in a really large place as well. It was beautiful, the area where it was full of fields and everything. The outlook was amazing and very calm. But our property was vast. We had constantly work. We're constantly putting effort and time and money into our home. And it was full of stuff still. You know, there was times where I felt that I was putting that before my children or before my partner, or way, way before myself. I was always last on the list. So yeah, we made the decision, 6 years ago, to take the job over here in the Middle East. So there was me, my husband had moved, my son at 16 said, I'm not coming, I'm staying in the UK. So we managed to get him a place in college. And I had this home, a 3-bedroomed large farmhouse with a 2-bedroomed holiday apartment with a double garage and a double loft full of stuff that I had to deal with literally by myself. And making those decisions of what we needed to keep, what we were shipping, what my son was going to have was quite traumatic. And even now I can feel the tension in my chest, all of that panic of how am I going to do this? How am I going to get rid of these things? Or how am I going to take, what do we need? You know, it was really, really stressful time. So it's really actually interesting. I was reflecting on that this morning, how in 6 years it's such a change of where we were then to where we are now, which we'll talk about later. So yeah, living with less really came about in COVID, I suppose. You know, COVID was a hit or miss for some people. For us, it was a massive reset, I suppose. You know, we were in a 3-bedroom villa. There was us and my daughter. My son was still in Scotland. And all we realized was all we wanted was connection. We wanted connection with people. We wanted to see our family. We wanted to be able to have freedom to travel, which we didn't at that time. We wanted to be healthy. So if we did get COVID, we were protected, and we just wanted to enjoy life and experience things. And we were looking around going, we're not using most of the stuff in our home. What's going on? So throughout COVID, we decided to downsize again to a 2-bedroom apartment, and we just started to slowly let go of things. Now, I've always been pretty good at selling stuff as my children outgrew them and things like that. But yeah, there was always those certain things that you just keep a hold of that you still can be difficult to let go of. It's a process. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at now. And, my daughter left, my children are 20 and 22. So she left Abu Dhabi 2 years ago. I became an empty nest mom, which was quite emotional after being that person that gives to everybody and being that person that just wants to see everybody else happy. I was suddenly like, okay, who do I help now? So that's kind of where it kind of started. And I was just like, well, actually, the effects this has had on me and my life and the ripple effect it's had on my family and my friends, why can I start helping others? So it really started with just helping people declutter and organize their homes. And then this year, I suppose the end of last year, I realized the connection, it was the emotional connection people have with their things is so much deep rooted. A lot of this, even my own journey, the reflection back to things in your childhood. We talk a lot about childhood traumas, and there's things in my past that I know have created a lot of that stress and anxiety that I don't judge or reflect or blame anybody, my parents, for. It's just how it was, and they did the best that they could, but I know it impacted myself. So yeah, that's why I decided to become a life coach. So I did my life coaching training this year as well through an amazing company called Mindful Talent in Scotland, because I just wanted to have that extra sort of understanding and coaching ability whilst going through the process with some clients, because some people do find it really difficult to let go, and it's trying to figure out what that story is then, and what's the story really behind that story of why they can't let go and why at the moment they've got such an attachment to their things. So yeah, this is kind of where I'm at now, really.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing. And, I find this area and this focus, this conversation so interesting and inspiring. And I shared a bit about this probably in our Sober Girls Club or maybe earlier on, but this was like a big part of my childhood, was that my dad was a hoarder. He had trouble letting go, and he still does. And I adopted those tendencies throughout my life. And I don't think I understood what a high level of mental stress this was having for me. And, I recently experienced something I've been super up and down with holding on and letting go of all my stuff. And now I think I live pretty lightly in comparison to the average person because I'm moving places all the time. But I'll share one story, which is that I subletted my friend's place for the summer, and it had 3 tenants before me who had all left their stuff in the place. Everyone was going to come back. And then it had been subleased and subleased and subleased. And then I moved in, it was full of all these people's stuff. And I didn't realize that I would then be taking responsibility for all of this stuff when the lease, which it did while I was living here. And it was like so stressful to have all of these like things in my space. And thankfully, in the end, the girl who the lease actually belonged to kind of took on all responsibility. And she was like, don't worry about it. I cleaned up what was mine. And then she took care of the rest, like, thankfully, which was really kind. But I could really feel the weight of all this stuff on me, you know? And when I moved into this new place, just with my stuff, I just have my stuff and then like one bag of my friend's place, one bag of my friend's stuff that I had subletted from that I said, okay, I'll take your guitar and like your clothes. And I just feel this like lightness in letting go. So it's true. There's a real like spiritual, emotional connection to all of this.
Oh, completely. You know, and it's, I suppose you think about it just as you described there. I was trying to say to people, it's like when you go on holiday, you know, when you book, say, a beautiful place in Bali or a little log cabin in the mountains. If you walked into it and it was just full of stuff, it's not going to feel calming and relaxing, you know, and your space is the same. You can live in your home the same way as living in a holiday apartment. It doesn't have to have this crowded, and it is, as you say, it's almost like a hemmed-in effect. It's almost makes you feel quite claustrophobic, and then you kind of close in a little bit yourself, and then that creates tension in your chest, and you start breathing heavier, or you know. So yeah, it's definitely and I think initially I wasn't aware of that was the reason why I did it. I became aware of the change in my anxiety the more I let go, and the more I changed my own, I suppose, went on my own journey, my own personal journey. You know, we had this, especially with my son, because my husband was in the military. We moved quite a lot, and we'd also have all the boxes and packed up, and they would just be shoved into the rooms. They weren't unpacked or anything. We had to do that. We always had to do my son's room first. So my son is undiagnosed ADHD, but he's definitely on the spectrum. You know, he has dyslexia, sensory processing issues, but he would go into like almost a rage or just complete panic state if the boxes were all in his room. You know, he couldn't sleep. So we were always, the first thing was always, let's just build his room. Let's build his room, and any boxes we'll just pull out, and you know, so that he could rest enough. So again, we were aware that was creating his stress, but I wasn't really connecting it fully until, I suppose, now in the journey that I've kind of gone through myself. So yeah, you're right. And other people's stuff is also a weight. We have it in our homes, you know. We've recently done it. You know, when we moved here, we actually held on to things that we wanted to keep, that were the children's and memorabilia and that kind of stuff, like we all feel we need to hold on to. And we left it in my stepfather's garage, you know, and we said it was only going to be for a short time, and we'd move it. And we hadn't, you know, 6 years on, and we cleared it all this summer because, you know, I said, look, this is so unfair. I'm going through this process. I'm teaching other people to let go, and we've got all of these boxes. So my husband and I, you know, set a time to go and action all of this. And we had, I think, 25 boxes were in there. Wow. We got it down to 2. We literally let go of all of it. And then we suddenly had a moment, and we went, what if we paid to put that in storage? You know, how much money would that have cost us? You know, on average, even say £100 a month, that's like over £7,000 to hold things we actually didn't want to keep. But again, decluttering is a journey. You know, at that time, we felt that need to hold, but actually letting go has freed us up so much more to living, I suppose, really. Yeah.
So was it difficult or easy for you when you started this process of letting go?
I think it can be both. So the easy wins are the things you're not really attached to. Your kitchen implements, you know, these kind of things. But I suppose we started really in COVID when we downsized to a 2-bed. It was like, okay, well, we don't need all of that bedroom furniture from that other spare room. We don't need all of these things because they're not going to fit in our space. So some of the big items like that was quite easy to let go of. The hardest parts, I think, are those things you have an emotional connection to, the things that we connect to because somebody's gifted it to us, a certain person, and sometimes there's a fear of judgment for letting it go, or it's something somebody's made, your children have made you, but you know, it's kind of lost what you don't even know what it looks like, but you have that feeling because it was made by them, you should keep it. And also things, you know, if people have passed is very difficult for a lot of people to let go of. But those things I found have been a process. So I would assess some of them and it'd be okay to keep what I felt at that time I needed to keep. And I often revisit my whole home, only in a 2-bedroom apartment, so it's quite easy to revisit it all. And suddenly it's like, well, actually, a year down, I've changed as a person, or the season of my life is different. Now we don't have our children, they're older now. Do I need to keep all the birthday cards they gave me when they were 2 and 3 and 4? I don't, because actually I just want that time with them. I don't need these things, So really understanding that my memories are in my heart and in my head. And when the anxiety goes, you can find them again so much easier. When you're fully anxious and you're stressed and you're full of cortisol, parts of your brain shut down and you don't find these things. You forget about them. But when you're in that calmer state, they're there. So yeah, having photographs is probably more important to me now than things. So it's a process. And I think learning a bit more about yourself, I think I probably started it not really from decluttering, from going down my own personal journey of trying to find something or ways or tools to reduce my anxiety, because I was seeing my teenage daughter at that time becoming quite anxious. Right. And I didn't want her to live the rest of her life, the next 34 years to where I am now, feeling this anxiety and fearing things and not living to her fullest potential. And I was like, well, it's not for her to change. I've got to make a change. I've got to change because I'm modeling. She's looking at me. Well, you don't do these things. You're scared of that. You don't just jump. Why should I? So a lot of my work really started, I suppose, was my own personal development, just listening to personal development books, walking, exercising again, amazing for mental health, and just slowly going that way. And then, as I say, once we moved, letting go, and the more we let go of, the more we realized we could breathe. And it's such a calming, effective tool, I think, to anxiety. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I have to share, as you started answering that question, I started thinking about something that really impacted me was the way that you reframed letting go in the Sober Girls Club we had a couple weeks ago. You reframed it in a way that it starts to become addictive to let things go. And it just took that one perception change. And it's so funny how for me, I didn't even realize that. It was the same thing with alcohol. I had to have a perception change of this is harming me in order for me to not want it in my life. And now it's like I've changed in the way I just walk around my house. And if there's things that I can eliminate from my presence immediately, then I do it. And, other things that would pile up, like old receipts. I was the worst for that. I would accumulate receipts, which I'm I don't even need these. I have it all in my online banking transaction record. I don't need any of these things, but I would accumulate them in my wallet for no reason. And now it's I see one in front of me and I'm how did that get there? That needs to be thrown out. And I just feel sometimes that reframe for me has turned it into a bit more of a joy instead of a chore or something to dread.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it almost, I don't want to use the word addiction because it's not.
Yeah.
But it is because, people, when we bring stuff into our home, and we hold on, that's a type of addiction as well, especially people that obsessively shop. A lot of people shop because of the way it makes them feel in that moment, just like why people drink alcohol, why people eat certain foods, why people gamble, all of these junk happiness addictions, I suppose. And yeah, it's almost that in reverse. But the happiness is not a junk form. The happiness is a more natural soul creating form that gives you so much more. And I think, I'm trying to remember what it is I said. I think it was literally looking at anything. So I talk about clutter. Clutter's not everything that's on your floor. It's not just those things. It's anything that's getting in the way of you living the healthy, happy, joyful life that you wish to be living. So that's when it starts to branch into other areas of your life and not just your things. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that idea of reframing it.
Yeah.
So I have a question for you. What are some of the health benefits of letting go of your things? That was something else that stuck out to me actually in that session, was you were talking about the health benefits of letting go. And I had never thought of it that way. And I began to wonder, I had inflammatory illnesses from birth, basically. By the time I was 1 year old, I started experiencing psoriasis, which my parents took me to the doctor, and I would go to the doctor really frequently when I was young, and I had all these medication for my psoriasis. It never improved it. And what I found has improved it. It's kind of disappeared in adulthood, but I think it's due to such a like such a healthy lifestyle that I'm living now with like the food I'm eating, the self-care practices, the well-being, like all of that. And I'm just wondering like that when you said something about like clutter and inflammatory illnesses, I was like, I wonder if that had any connection to like me experiencing this. So anyway, I'm just wondering what are some of the health benefits of letting go of your things?
Yeah, it's interesting to hear that. And obviously the connection I know you've shared about living in quite a hoarded home as a youngster. I suppose the big one for me, as I said, I went down this pathway of trying to relieve my own anxiety and my own fear. So that to me is a massive win. That's one of the most prominent health benefits you can get from letting go. Because when we're in an anxious state, when we're constantly in panic, we're in fight and flight mode constantly, you know, our sympathetic nervous system is just on fire. So our heart rate's going up, our breathing rate's going up, and it switches part of our brain off, as I said, you know, so we're not thinking correctly, we're not focusing properly. So when we can let that go and we can actually bring our body into a rested state and feel more calmer, then we're not having all of these effects. So we are allowing ourselves to focus better. You know, it creates more productivity in your life. So if you've got at work and you work off a desk and you've got stuff all over it and there's paper piled up, if you can find space for that, file it away, you know, create clarity around you, your productivity and your focus is probably going to go up massively. But reflecting back to your inner health, you know, when you're in that stress state, you've just got cortisol all over your body. And it's such a, you know, we need it in our life, but it's also quite detrimental in a lot of health illnesses. You know, a lot of illnesses are created by this constant rise and constant level of cortisol in our bodies because we're constantly living with these little micro stresses in our life. A lot of them we're really unaware to until we let them go, you know, and we suddenly then realize, oh, I actually feel better. Oh, I've cleaned that up. And, you know, now my skin's better. Because obviously if we've got stuff, especially hoarding, if it's piled up around you, the amount of dust and dirt and, you know, things that can be gathered there, insects that then might drop feces, you know, that is in your home that you can then get a reaction to as well. And you're also breathing that in. So then it could create, and your skin reflects a lot of what's going inside you, you know. So the health benefits are just outstanding, I find, you know, with these are the main ones that I see in letting go is just, for me, it is the anxiety, you know, and that overwhelm because you bring in that cortisol levels down, which then is helping your long-term health. Because if you keep that high for many, many years, we get into that state of what they call, I suppose, age-related diseases, you know, and a lot of them aren't, they're just lifestyle choices, right. You know, we are who we are today based on the accumulation of everything we've done to this point, you know. Now, yes, some diseases are genetics and hereditary, but a lot of it's to do with our environment, what we're bringing in around our bodies, what we're allowing into our home, what we're cleaning our homes with, what we're washing our bodies with, what we're eating, you know. Yeah. You have this choice. It's just becoming aware of it because there's so much stuff hidden in a lot of these products these days, which is pretty scary and pretty frightening. Yeah. But yeah, great health benefits. If you're really struggling, I mean, today is actually Mental Health Awareness Day, isn't it? I think 10th of October that we're recording this. I'm not sure when it's going to go out. So yeah, for me, it's up there. It's a tool. It's in that little box of, you know, yoga, meditation, journaling, time in nature. It's all going back to simplifying life to how it was before we just had this consumed world of stuff and, you know, we must buy, we must have, we must need, we must own, or we're nothing, you know. We won't be happy if we don't have this, you know. That lifestyle of more. Actually, we've learned that less is actually gives you so much more life. Yeah.
Speaking of, you mentioned like some of those toolkit things, yoga, meditation, and I was thinking a lot about, you know, the spirituality of yoga. There's this practice called aparigraha, which is the fifth yama. It's about letting go. And so letting go is a big part of yoga. And I think it's a big part of like other spiritual practices too. And I'm just wondering if you had any thoughts on like the spiritual practices included in letting go.
Yeah, this was a funny question. We had a little chat about this earlier.
Yeah.
And I suppose in a way it's bringing it in as one of those things that maybe not a daily thing. In fact, in a way I could describe it as a daily thing, but definitely something on a weekly basis where you're making it part of your practice of, okay, is there anything I need to let go of this week? And it might not just be a thing. It might be, what am I holding on to in here? You know, what can I let go of here? Now, a lot of people journal to get things out of their head. That's a letting go practice, you know. a lot of us do meditation or mindfulness, yoga, and it's bringing awareness, I think, into what's around you, what you have, what you need, and I think that brings it down to a spiritual type of practice. Now, on an everyday occurrence, we're not going to throw something out every day. I mean, you got trash. But, what I often do is reset my home before I go to bed. So that you could bring that in as a type of sort of spiritual practice, I suppose, on the end of your evening, just like maybe you might do a 5-minute meditation before bed or a journal just before you go upstairs. It's just a quick case of, tidy up the cushions on the sofa, make sure all the dishes are done, the kitchen's been wiped down, everything kind of has been put back in its place. I love the whole that everything has a zone in a home. We talked about this in the Sober Girls group, and a lot of people love that, the whole zoning of your things, just returning all of those things back to their little homes, so that when you get up in the morning and you come downstairs to make your coffee or your tea or whatever it is you do, you're not faced with this stress of mess, and that's, you don't want to start your day like that. You want to start your day in your morning routine, owning what it is you want to be doing, being positive, having your affirmations, doing some yoga or meditation. Yeah. If you journal in the morning, journal, read a book for 10 minutes. You don't want to be coming down going, what are the dishes to do? Oh my God, why did nobody put all that washing away last night? I wish I'd just done this. So yeah, it takes 5 minutes to quickly just put things away, toys back in the box, and bring the whole family involved. It's not just one person. If you're living in a home with, your children and your partner, it's not all on one person. To reset the home. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, everybody go. We've got 5 minutes. Then we're going to play a board game or something, and always give it something afterwards. I think if you're doing it as a group thing like that, I always say we're going to do this fun thing, but everybody's got to do 5 minutes of this first, and that gets them into practice. I think it's really important for our children of really small ages to learn where things are. It helps their mental clarity as well. If we feel overwhelmed in a space, imagine what our small children are feeling. As I shared with you how we were aware my son was feeling overwhelmed, but I wasn't really putting the connections together. Right. So, I'm gifting this to young parents now, who have got young children, please, just your children, the more stuff you give them doesn't mean you love them more, right. Which I think we grew up with, that's why, I would go into panic mode at birthdays and Christmases, go, oh, he hasn't got enough, I need to buy more, He would think I love him if you don't give him all of these things. That's so opposite now. We literally hardly exchange gifts now. We just arrange to do something cool together, We go on holiday, or we go for a nice dinner, a really nice experience dinner somewhere, or an event or something. We want to spend that time. I think post-mum, it's coming up for 10 years since I lost my mum now. That has been a massive shift in my life to realize we don't know how long, we're not guaranteed tomorrow, Right. So I would much rather, go on holiday with my kids as a group thing at Christmas than go and buy them a few £100 handbag and, a new pair of boots. So it's I think it definitely is to be brought in. It just creates a more mindful way of being, I think, and becoming so much more intentional of now what you bring in. So that's the state we're at now. Yeah, I still let go of things. I still have, I'm looking at it in here now across my laptop. I've got boxes of old photographs. But now's the time. I'm about to move again. So now's the time to go, well, they've been in a cupboard and I haven't really addressed them that much. But I'm in a good place now to let a lot of them go, because most of them are duplicates. Most of them have got a pit. I hang up with pigeons and random scenery, that we're holding on to. So again, it's that process. You have to find that time that is okay for you to let go of these things and just reducing it. And then you might find 6 months' time, you can reduce it again. In 6 months' time, you can reduce it again, It's okay to wait, but when you can let go of 1 or 2 things at a time, it starts that habit. It starts that change, So yeah, it's definitely something. It's a win-win in all places, I think. Start decluttering your life today.
And I love what you suggested of just doing this 5 or 10 minute home reset, because I actually use this app now. I think it's called Habit, and I put in all the things I want to do every day. I want to have 10K steps. I want to do a yoga practice. I want to do a 20 meditation. I want to cook at least 1 meal by myself. And in there is a 10-minute tidy before bedtime. And I will just put on a podcast or a song and just tidy up the space. And that's become a daily practice. It feels really good when I wake up in the morning and things are organized.
Oh, that's amazing. I've not heard of that app. And so that's really cool. Yeah, it's definitely, it's, as you say, that feeling of just getting up in the morning and, you know, you can just get on and do what you have to do, what your morning routine is going to be, rather than starting in that sort of, in that heightened stress state. Because often what we do then is we start, especially if you're living in a household with other people, you then start getting angst or aggressive or just annoyed and angry because you're the one then doing it and nobody else has. So especially in a family situation, I think bring everybody together, have a 5-10 minute reset, as you say, everybody gets involved, and just slowly it becomes a practice. So it's just part of your day. I think it's really important to start bringing in. Yeah.
All right. What can you let go of beyond physical possessions?
So other things. So yeah, this was interesting when we talked at the Sober Girls yoga group, because obviously I was like trying to make them aware that they've already let go. They already started their process of letting go because they've all let go of alcohol, you know? And I suppose in my reflection, it was that inner work. What can I do to reduce my anxiety? Oh, letting go of these things is reducing my anxiety. What else is cluttering up my life? You know, I start to question that. I was like, what else is getting in the way of me living the life, the healthy life that I want to lead, the life that gives me a bit more freedom? So if I have to fly to see my children, if there's an emergency, or my parents, I can jump on a plane quite easily. And so a lot of that was, you know, we started looking into natural ways of cleaning our home. You know, what's all these chemicals that we're using, all of these sprays and stuff, you know, and I was aware that, you know, I'd walk past, you know, the stalls in the mall, you know what they're like here, and they're spraying the perfumes and things. And I'd start coughing and I'd, you know, react. And I was like, oh my goodness, it's, you know, creating a reaction in my body. And it's like that connection. Well, all of these things in our home are almost doing the same thing. So yeah, so we started letting go of chemicals a lot now. You can't eradicate them all. They're hidden in a lot of our products, but it's just becoming really aware of it and really mindful of what could actually be impacting our health. You know, my mum passed away of lung cancer. So again, I never really connected anything, but now reflecting back, it's like, you know, our childhood home, you know, I was a 70s baby. So the childhood home was full of like shaken back and, you know, all of these sprays to kill, you know, rooms refreshers and plug-ins of air fragrances and candles and, you know, all of these smells to hide other smells. But actually a lot of them are quite toxic and they're quite damaging to our overall health. And, you know, did that play a part in my mum's lung cancer? I don't know. I would never know. But if you're breathing in these things that we're spraying in our air, you know, they're finding their way into our lungs, into the tiny, tiny little particles, into the little alveoli and the bronchial parts of our lungs. You know, if you're doing that every day for 30, 40, 50, 60 years, there's got to be an accumulation of something. They can't all get out, you know? So it's looking at it when we talk about marginal gains in sport, you know, if you change one little thing, just 1%, you get this gain. And it's the same, I think, in that negative way. If you're continually adding toxins around you, then it's going to get accumulated at some point into something and create some kind of reaction. And at the end of the day, they're just chemistry. It's chemical stuff. And we're only a chemical body, you know, and a lot of us will react to some different than others. So yeah, so that was a major one for me. So we pretty much don't have chemical cleaning products in my home at all. I use more natural products and sort of fiber-based products. Another big thing was our diet. You know, what were we eating? What were we consuming? You know, all of this food some of it was making me feel sluggish. I was addicted, as you know, to chocolate. That was my big thing when I was really suffering as a youngster of anxiety and stress and overwhelm. I would binge eat on sugar and sweets and carbs and, you know, these high processed type foods because it would make me feel good at the time. Just like people will binge on alcohol because they feel happy in that moment. But the effects afterwards, you know, you start kind of making those connections. Well, why am I feeling so sluggish? Why have I got no energy? You know, why am I overthinking things? Or, you know, all of these sort of negative sort of feelings. And then you start going into self-berative mode as well. When you're feeling in that way, you know, you start feeling bad about yourself because you then ate that food. So then you want to go and eat more to make yourself feel better, and you get stuck in this cycle. So yeah, so letting go of food was a big move. You know, I ended up doing sort of keto, low carb for like 6 months, really to break my addiction to sugar. Mm-hmm. Now I brought it back into my life, and I now have it in moderation, and I'm okay with it. So I'm very more mindful and aware of when to have it in my day as well. So I don't eat cake first thing in the morning, you know, that's not good. But it's okay to have it in small moderations. It's talking about about excess. For me, it's what's in excess in your life. That's what you want to start letting go of, because excess is what then starts creating dis-ease somewhere, whether it's in your head or in your body or in the connections that you have with your family, and sort of talking about that. That's, I suppose, another one. A lot of us live in some toxic environments or work in toxic environments. So that, I suppose, was an area that I kind of reassessed, I suppose, in some way. I was like, what could I do that is benefiting me? And if that person that you're hanging around with or the way somebody's speaking to you is creating a drain or creating a stress response in your body, I was starting to become aware of that and starting to question that. And young Emma, as that little people pleaser that she was, never questioned anything. She just did. She did what she was told, And more mature Emma, who's gone through her personal journey, has started to say no. And I think that was a big thing, bringing in that boundary of going, this doesn't sit right with me. And it doesn't have to create an argument. Sometimes it could just be a distance, just constantly saying, oh, I can't make that. I'm okay with that. And eventually you drift apart. But also when it's family, it's a bit harder, just having those conversations, being strong enough to connect with people and say, look, what you said there's really hurt me, or I don't believe in that anymore. This is how I want to be living my life. And that can cause an issue. It can cause that middle ground of your life. I suppose it's like moving abroad. When you move somewhere new, you've kind of left this old person behind or this old life, and then you're trying to form another one, but you're in this middle zone of almost by yourself, So that's why I think doing the personal development work really helps. And that's why I want to go into coaching as well, because you have to be strong within yourself to be able to go, it's okay to be me. It's okay to be by myself, because those that want to come with me, and those that love me, and those who want to stay with me will come and will stay. And then I'll find some other like for like people that are feeling and loving and being in the same way that I'm wanting to flow and vibrate in the world now. So yeah, that's a difficult one for a lot of people. I wouldn't say be harsh with it. Some people want to, but for me, it's just the communication has changed massively in my family, I think. I'm more communicative and open with my husband rather than having expectations of him that he didn't know, So therefore I'd be annoyed with him because he didn't do X, Y, and Z, but he was like, how am I supposed to know if you don't tell me? And the same, with some of, my parents, my siblings, just saying, hey, that doesn't float my boat, or stop getting stressed over that, calm down, it's okay. Well, that's not my belief, but I really respect it's yours. And then slowly start to learn that mutual respect for you as well. So yeah, anything else I've let go of? I suppose expectations and on myself and judgment and negative self-talk. I was massive on that. I used to hate myself on many days, And my husband would be so loving, going, what are you doing? You're amazing. Look what you're doing with the children, all of the stuff that you help me out with. I was a stay-at-home mum pretty much all my life. So I always think, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that. But I was raising the children, especially when they were struggling with my husband being away so much. For us, that we needed to keep that grounded, that stability for them, especially for my son. He really struggled with separation anxiety. So, but I would go into the self-berative mode. Well, I'm not good enough to do this. I'm not being a good mom. I didn't make dinner in time, so I'm a bad wife, and you get stuck in that cycle, and then you'd go and eat cake to make yourself feel better, that whole little negative junk cycle. And now I've allowed that to let go. I've allowed to go, you know what, Emma, today you're doing okay. And if it's not going okay, let's just accept it. Tomorrow will be better, so I think really learning to love myself, find my own inner happiness, and that happiness wasn't gifted to me as I learned as a child, I suppose, in all of these things, that it's okay to be happy just to be, and not feel lonely in the world, that I have to have somebody with me to go and experience something. I can go and do that myself if it's what truly brings me joy, and that's okay too. So yeah, letting go of, there's so much area, I think, around this you can let go of. You can almost put it into any area of your life and reframe it in that way of, I'm decluttering that section of my life. I'm decluttering my home. It's not just, as I've said before, it's not just the things that are on our floor. It's anything that's getting in the way of you living that healthy, happy, positive life of what it is you want to be doing. And sometimes that's people, sometimes that's things, sometimes that's the place you're in. You might just be in the wrong location. Make a move, see what changes in your world. That could create so much doors opening for you just by moving the area that you're living in. So yeah, there's loads and loads of areas you can connect it to. It's amazing when I when other people start talking about different things, I'm like, oh, that could connect to letting go. That's how can we reframe that?
Yeah.
It definitely is a process, I think, but starting with your things is an easier one. And then with the health aspect, like yourself and myself that are living now, we want to live this healthier lifestyle. So it's suddenly like questioning that then, if that's one of my values, and that's been a big thing, I think, with a lot of my coaching clients that I've worked with, is really understanding your core values. And I wasn't really aware of that myself until my coaching course. It's been amazing. Well, what are my values? What are values, And then really going, well, actually questioning any decision I'm making, going, well, is that living up to the value that I've set for myself of living a simple lifestyle, of living more free, of living with joy, of living with kindness, And that's also not how it's perceived out to the world. It's how it's being to myself. So hence letting go of the negative self-talk. Well, if I'm talking to myself in a derogative manner, I'm not being kind, I'm not being kind to me. So yeah, understanding your values, I think, is a really great aspect to go down and start living and questioning your life by them. And it really, you see a shift. You can see that, well, actually, that's not, eating that cake's not going to lead to my healthy lifestyle. But I'm okay if I have that small bit today, because I'm not going to eat it every day like I used to. So yeah.
Love that. Well, Emma, this has been the most amazing, inspiring conversation. And I know I took so much from that first time you were a guest at Sober Girls Club, and I took so much from this call now, and I'm sure that the listeners of our show will as well. So I just want to thank you so much for your time and sharing all your wisdom and knowledge with us.
You're very, very welcome.
Thank you.
I don't know if I want to end on just one little thing. If people want to start their process of letting go, the best way, I think, is to create a vision. Sit for a day or a weekend, do some journaling. What do you want from your life? How do you want your life to look? How do you want to feel? How do you want your home to be? How do you want to feel walking into your space? How do you want your bedroom to feel when you go in there and into bed at night? Create this vision for yourself, and then just start with one thing. Start with something really small and really easy to get that win, to gain that habit, and start just letting go of a few things every day. It could be something simple as your fridge. Clean out your fridge, or your junk drawer, or your bathroom cabinet. Something small, so that you can start seeing that change and that feeling that you get when you let these things go, and the space looks clearer and calmer. So yeah, that's how I would get you to start decluttering your life.
Emma, thank you so much, and really appreciate your time and your presence. And I'm going to put the link in the episode description to your website and everything else for our community to see.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Alex, for having me.
Thank you.